Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sorting Hat Podcast, where everything and anything can and will be sorted. I, as always, am your host, Michael Barryte, joined by my wonderful co-host of Chaos, Katie Reed.
I'm scared for this episode.
As you very well should be.
God.
The basic conceit of the show being we're joined by a guest who is an expert on some sort of subject. Today, we're joined by the wonderful Franky Guttman of the This Is Dark Matters podcast.
Full disclosure, I happen to also help out on that podcast.
And also an exceptional, as I was scanning his IMDb page, an exceptional editor with like a bevy of very impressive
And just
work.
all around
Ooh,
one
bevy.
of the all around also one of the funniest improvisers in Los Angeles. Like, figure out where he's playing and go see him immediately.
Thank you, guys. I just peed my pants a little bit.
That's the stuff I'm talking
shyness.
about.
There it
Go
is.
see
There's
that.
hot comedy, you guys. If you want pee pants jokes, just look me up and figure out where I'm at.
Yeah, as worth disclosing, I am a Ravenclaw, Katie is a Hufflepuff, and Franky, what are you?
I am a Slytherin.
Yeah,
That's-
you said that your girlfriend was mad about that.
Yeah,
Tell us about it.
when I said I was coming on this podcast, she's like, "Oh, we have to make you take the test." So
Yeah.
I went and took the test, and I think I answered like the question where it's like, "Do you want power?" or something like that, and I was like, "Hell yeah, I want power." And she was like, she was oddly disturbed by it. Like she was like, "Oh," like when the result came up, she's like, because she's a big Harry Potter fan.
Some people like to find out that they've been sleeping in the same bed as a Slytherin. It can be a shock.
Yeah. I'm I'm happy with it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like.
I've never met a Slytherin who wasn't.
Yeah. Oh, so maybe it's appropriate.
we
then.
had one guest on our show who had to like kind of work through their feelings a little
But by
bit
the
upon
end, he was
learning.
amped. He was
Yeah.
like, "This is
It's-
correct."
It's once you like take ownership of your Slytherin brethren, like you're all in. I feel the Slytherin again within people is like part of it is being like, yes, these are my people. Like
Right.
whereas like Ravenclaws and Hufflepuffs are like, like that's cool.
Are there like, you know, when you take a personality test and they're like famous people who have this, and like mine will be like Meryl Streep is also an INTJ or whatever. Like, are there like famous Slytherin people, and are they cool people?
I believe so. There are a number of lists that exist out there.
I have to say though, anyone who takes the Pottermore quiz is like losing some of their cool capital.
Yeah.
It's a long test, number one, to find out like what kind of dork am I. What was your girlfriend? Did she take it too?
I'm guessing Gryffindor.
I think she's Hufflepuff.
Oh,
I wanna
okay.
say.
Yeah.
That's
Maybe
in
I'm
line
wrong.
with Katie then.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like, you know, I saw a really funny tweet. I need to figure out who it's a tribute to. I'm so sorry that I forgot. When this episode drops, I'll link. And someone was like, there are 4 kinds of kids: smart kids, brave kids, evil kids, miscellaneous. And then the rest of the houses went, that seems fair. Let's start the school.
I just googled famous Slytherins. I have to read this. The first 3 in this random article I found are Harrison Ford, Chrissy Teigen, and the octopus from Finding Dory.
What who made this? The octopus from Finding Dory.
Yeah.
I just hope that the 3 of them form a super group
Yeah.
or are in a movie together.
What?
Oh my God. What a flick.
What a trio. So getting somewhat more back on topic, although, you know, we're going to deviate. The subject at hand is the Zodiac Killer's letters.
Mm-hmm.
We went back and forth on this because there was definitely the discussion of like, oh, what are things that you know a lot about?
Yeah.
Franky was very quick to be like, the Zodiac Killer. I mean, in general, like, this is Dark Matters. For those unfamiliar, the subjects are more, I don't want to say like completely conspiratorial, but there's like definitely a darker.
Well, we are controlled by the
seedy-
Illuminati.
Right.
I'm gonna put that on the table. It's about the unknown. It's about the things that scare us.
Yeah,
Things that
the paranormal, the occult,
anything that we
anything
cannot.
dark.
Yeah, anything we cannot control.
Anything
Yeah.
that might make you consider getting some like aluminum foil and just like wrapping it around.
Yeah,
my head a little bit.
anything that makes you want to turn a light on before you go to bed.
Right.
Yeah, because you were inspired by Art Bell's Coast to Coast, right?
Yes, very much so.
Of AM radio fame. If like people who listen to podcasts now even know what AM radio is.
I think AM radio fame in and of itself is a misnomer to the highest degree. But
like it was literally it was the only listenable show unless you were really into Christians yelling at you on AM radio.
Oh yeah, and here's a cool thing that I found from reading Art Bell's book, The Art of Talk. I guess he started his show in the desert in Nevada, and apparently at night radio waves travel farther than they do during the daytime because of some sort of interference with the sun. So the reason that it became a coast to coast show is because like he's broadcasting at 2 a.m. and he could go from Nevada like all the way to like Chicago.
That's wild.
Amazing.
So
I had
the
no
signal
idea.
would spread, and so he would get, even though like during the daytime that station was in like the middle of the desert in Nevada and nobody could hear it, at night it like spread, and that's how he like built his
fabulous.
empire.
That in itself is like kind of creepy.
Yeah.
Just the
And
fact that
there's a
this
wonderful
tiny
thing
shack.
you didn't know. So we're going to be tackling several, not all of the Zodiac Killer's letters and some of the ciphering nonsense that
Yo,
is-
Michael.
Yo,
Hey, Franky.
Katie.
I'm like post millennial. Who's the Zodiac Killer?
Oh, sure. I can give a who is the Zodiac Killer? So the Zodiac Killer was a killer in the late 60s and early 70s in San Francisco. He has 6 known victims, although claims to have killed up to 37 people in his later letters, but only 6 confirmed victims and two living victims. And basically, he became famous by writing these letters to the press. He would send them into the newspapers in the area and demand that they be published or he'll kill more people.
Oh, God.
And the newspapers published them, sometimes on the front page. And so it kind of, in like 1969, 1970, there was sort of Zodiac panic in San Francisco, where at one point he threatened to kill children coming off of a school bus, so parents wouldn't send their children to school for that whole week. And of course that never happened. And he said he planted a bomb somewhere in San Francisco, but the bomb never went off. So I mean, a real killer and definitely a deadly guy, but also a little bit of a bragger.
The most compelling thing I would say of all the Zodiac Killers, like longstanding history, is they're an unknown entity. Like there's been many assumptions of who the Zodiac Killer is or was, but there's no definitive like this person is definitely the Zodiac Killer.
We have no idea who he is, and the main suspect, Arthur Lee Allen, who if you've seen the Zodiac movie, it'll lead you to believe that he was the Zodiac. But actually,
Franky just rolled his eyes for everyone listening at home.
But he's been ruled out by DNA. They actually have the partial DNA of the Zodiac.
Really?
That's so frustrating.
He killed a cab driver, and there's a bloody handprint that was on the side of the cab. And also, maybe 10 years ago, they found some DNA from the stamp on one of the letters that he sent. Because, back then people didn't know about DNA. So you have to assume, unless he was like, hey, Larry, come lick my stamp.
Right.
If he wouldn't occur to you to do that.
Overly cautious.
And I say this not like lightly or anything, but like I'm so glad that this guy was not killing today, because if he was like getting off so much by taunting the media just through snail mail, imagine how much worse things would be, how much more blown out things would be if he had access to the internet.
Oh, I would go so far to say that I don't think he would be nearly as successful, because like ISP tracking and all sorts of like other means of sort of like
spoofing ISPs is really easy, my dude.
It is, but you still need to be pretty dang careful, because there's a lot of like counter
and we
technology.
can't say that this guy is careful. So maybe he would have been caught, but
he
I'm just
almost
saying
did get caught. He went after he killed the Paul Stein, the cab driver, basically in the middle of San Francisco. Originally, it was seen by some children who were in the house across the street. They saw the crime take place.
Oh my
but
God.
the first radio call went out was looking for a black man. So he writes in one of his letters that he walked past 2 police officers who were looking for a black man and didn't stop him. And then later on, they sketched him based on what the kids saw. And it's like a man who's like, looks like he's in his 40s and he's kind of heavy set and he has these like 60s trendy glasses on.
Yeah, that's the image that I always.
Serial killer is like just this dumpy middle-aged dude.
Yeah.
Only when they get caught anyway. Oh God.
And he's never been caught and he stopped. So after like 1974, no more letters, no contact with the media at all, as far as we know. I mean, there's some letters from like the 80s and 90s that some people think might be Zodiac letters, but officially in the 70s, just radio silence. So the question is, did he die? Was he incarcerated? Where did he go? I can go on and on.
And these of the letters that we've pulled, these are all letters that are presumed authentic Zodiac letters or like confirmed.
Most of them are confirmed. I mean, a few of the letters that cab driver Paul Stein that he murdered, he ripped off his shirt during the murder, and then he included a piece of the shirt in some of the letters. And some of his letters include. That
gets you right there. You're like, yep, that right there, some of that Paul Stein shirt. Yep, yeah, good.
Yeah, and then
Stamp.
and some of the letters contain details of crimes that other people wouldn't have.
Yeah,
and then you'll see with one of the later ones. I guess we'll talk about it when we get to it.
Yeah. All right, so let's dive into the first one. And while for the most part we are going chronologically, we're gonna we have the 1966 Riverside desk, which we're saving for near the end of our discussion. But we're gonna start with the 1969 Times Herald letter, and this was not only sent to the.
Well, let's do the San Francisco Chronicle.
Oh, the San Francisco. Okay. Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't it not sent to all 3?
Yeah, but it's different. It's slightly different.
Oh,
yeah,
I see.
The Chronicle's the main.
Yeah,
gotcha.
Because I think the gist we get is like he expects these different publications to be working together.
Yeah.
So the Zodiac Killer sent 3 of virtually the same letter, but the same cipher, correct?
3 pieces of a cipher, and he all 3 newspapers published it.
Gotcha.
And then an old couple, I forget their names, who lived like in some middle state. Sorry, folks. Were like, basically figured it out while they were.
Hell yeah.
They were just like it was like a crossword puzzle for them, and they figured it out by.
Those people people who are like who can do ciphers have the kind of brain genius that I can't even comprehend.
Right. I mean, on a small scale level, did you ever watch Gravity Falls?
No.
Just on the cipher tip, like they're, to my understanding, fairly basic, but they have some cipher nonsense going on at the end credits.
Well, because his second cipher that he sent after this one, the 340 character cipher, has never been solved.
Oh.
And,
get on it, internet.
Yeah, and I mean, the internet is on it. The internet is on it.
The internet's on everything.
There's a lot of proposed solutions.
That was like a half joke. So I'm like, I'm sure no one's tried this one.
Yeah.
Should do you want Franky to read the first letter?
I mean, I think Franky is like going to be our designated letter reader.
This is great.
As you've already got the dark covered.
All right. Why do you have half a boner right now? Calm down.
That's true, and I'm disturbed that you can see it. Okay. Dear editor, I am the killer of the 2 teenagers last Christmas at Lake Herman and the girl last 4th of July. To prove this, I shall state some facts which only I and the police know. Christmas, 1, brand name of ammo, Super X. 2, 10 shots fired. 3, boy was on his back with feet to the car. 4, girl was lying on right side, feet to west. 4th July. 1, girl was wearing patterned pants. 2, boy was also shot in the knee. 3, ammo was made by Western. Here is a cipher, or that is part of one. The other 2 parts are being mailed to the Vallejo Times and San Francisco Chronicle. I want you to print this cipher on the front page, FRUNT, by Friday afternoon, AUG 169. If you do not print this cipher, I will go on a kill rampage Friday night. This will last the whole weekend. I will cruise around killing people who are alone at night until sun night or until I kill a dozen people. And he signs it with the Zodiac symbol. Now I
looks
read the
like a
San Francisco
crosshair, right?
Examiner. That was the one I read.
Mhm.
But they're basically all the same.
Yeah, what's so remarkable about this is the very hyper specific, like in the moment, or like the specificity with the details regarding like which direction the feet were pointing, things like that, which shows a very, very, very calculated nature, but also there had to be like a collected coolness to almost even before the murder went down, that the Zodiac Killer was like, all right, so like I'm going to go and kill some people, and when I do, I need to just like take note of a few things.
Yeah, the same way that any other hobbyist would be like, okay, I'm gathering my supplies, I'm going to go do this thing, then I'm going to make notes about what I did afterwards, so I know how to
actually, the
improve.
feet were pointing west.
Like it's,
This is a fucking murderer nerd.
Yeah.
Right. And based on it's one of those things that oftentimes happens when we've got like thematic sort of an overtone, or like with one author behind things. Like when we were doing Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, for example, we were like, all right, let's try not to like just ride the like, it's art, so inherently it's going to be this.
We have to try to remove ourselves from the fact that these are very unimaginable acts, and usually those sort of acts would, in the Harry Potter universe, be committed by Slytherins. We're going to try to not necessarily pin this all down to Slytherin.
Based on like there's a case to be made for, obviously like the ambition side that would like have Slytherin, and the cunning to pull these things off, and the cipher.
Right, and there's
basis.
a sort of, when you read these, if you're listening to the podcast, you can go back and read. This is the man who's highly intelligent, but it doesn't necessarily, from my first glance at this, look like he might have less formal education. He has a lot of misspellings.
Mm-hmm.
Either, I don't know if these are just regional, or maybe
people
just,
also speculate that maybe are the misspellings intentional? Is he
Right.
trying to
some
throw
sort of,
people
like-
off that he's smart? Or
I see it more as almost trying to be cute, like a little bit of, like I'm obviously leaning into this serial killer thing.
honestly,
so
and this is really fucked up for me to compare, but I had a grandpa who did not kill people, obviously, but he thought he was a lot smarter than he was in terms of like formal education.
Mhm.
But he was pretty clever as like a dude. But when he would write, it was like just a goddamn mess, and he would never know that these misspellings were those.
Yeah.
Because to him, he was like the smartest guy in any room. But he would
Right.
fucking write. He'd write toilet seat with like an R in it for some reason.
Mhm. Yeah, it definitely runs the spectrum of, is this ironic misspellings, or is this, the playful winking of how we will sometimes just send an emoji or a lol around as like, ha ha ha, this is like what is assumed that we millennials type, but now it's like taken over as a reality to our actual typography and whatnot.
Yeah, and this was actually right around literally the week that the Tate LaBianca murders were happening in Los Angeles, the Manson family murders. So before the Zodiac and before the Manson family and all that, like serial killers were not really a thing. They were not really part of the consciousness.
And then in the 1970s and 80s, they just exploded everywhere.
Yeah, and so
Well, I'm sure the glorifying, or like being glorified like this and showing how much sway and power one could have over a publication such as, you got 3 newspapers all front page printing.
I think I just in case there's any like total Zodiac heads on there, I think one, like the Chronicle wouldn't print it on the front page. They printed it on like the 3rd or 4th page or something like that. But the smaller papers printed it on the front page.
Right. But
but he invented this playbook. It's Jack the Ripper and then Zodiac Killer, and like
and like even like the Manson family, like Charles Manson took this, once he realized this is like how things are falling down, he's like, oh, this is how I get famous, and that's what created like this whole like circus of just like despicable acts becoming a way to become a celebrity.
Right.
Because celebrity became a sort of capital in America, especially, that most people were like, by any means necessary. And we see extensions of it happening even today, not necessarily with murders, but people will do anything for fame today. And it's fucking weird.
I mean, being infamous is sometimes more impressive than being famous to some. Like, and it's oftentimes via a shortcut and a very selfish one.
So I would say, just based on this being his like grand debut, very ambitious, very cunning, and willing to do whatever it takes, I put this first set of letters anyway into Slytherin.
Yeah, I agree. There's a part of me that feels it could be argued that it is a bit of a Ravenclaw in the fact that it's very meticulous and attention to detail.
Right.
I don't think it's a Hufflepuff in any sense.
Because it's very adversarial. It's very and issuing ultimatums in a way that I don't think that Hufflepuff seems more prone to like negotiation.
I feel that if this were a Hufflepuff letter, it would be a little bit more playful, as strange as that sounds. There's obviously like a sense of mockery that is certainly going to come up more so in later letters. But right now things are fairly even keel and just like, let me lay this down for you. Here's this, here's this, here's this, here's this. Here's my ultimatum. You could make the argument that because it is such a bold move, that that this letter is a Gryffindor because it is a touch brash in like, obviously there's a degree of power being manipulated, which I think then shifts it back into the Slytherin camp. But the argument could be made.
What do you think, Franky?
I mean, as a Slytherin, I'm not happy to claim it, but
I don't think any of us want to claim these letters, but this is what you chose. This is your subject,
this is what I chose, and I think it is such a move. And I guess maybe it was a different time, but sending, and you need all three letters in order for the cipher to be solved. So he needs all three newspapers to publish the cipher.
For that reason, maybe you're right. Maybe it's Ravenclaw. Who the fuck else is going to send a puzzle?
Well, like but it has the power play component, which I think then slams it back into the Slytherin camp of, if one of these three newspapers, because correct me if I'm wrong, he calls out the other two newspapers that he's sending them to.
It's holding them accountable to each other, because if any of them decide to ignore it, those other two could like potentially have some sort of like political shift to be like, look at these people who were fine with the idea of more people being murdered.
Right. This is a jigsaw level play. And
the fact that he sent these to newspapers and not to the police, saying, I definitely want this to be everywhere.
It's a spotlight grab, which is Slytherin, unfortunately. Sorry, Slytherins.
So this is like the smart Slytherin.
But shall we also, so the letter itself, I think we can brand as, or tattoo, or however you want to ascribe it, as a Slytherin. The cipher, should we deal with on its own?
Yeah, I think so. It's very different in tone. All right, so this is the Zodiac 408 cipher. I like killing people because it is so much fun. It is more fun than killing wild game in the forest because man is the most dangerous animal of all. To kill something gives me the most thrilling experience. It is even better than getting your rocks off with a girl. The best part of it is that when I die, I will be reborn in paradise, and all they I have killed will become my slaves. I will not give you my name because you will try to slow down or stop my collection of slaves for my afterlife. And then there's a series of characters that have never been solved at the end of it.
Oh, wow. So There's like a secondary cipher.
That might even be his name, right?
Well, there's another in another letter he sent. He has a mini cipher where it says "My name is," and then there's a series of symbols.
Oh,
But nobody's ever solved that one either. Well, many people have claimed that they've solved it, but nobody's successfully solved it.
The phrase "I like killing people because it is so much fun" sounds like if you told a 7-year-old, "Give me your best evil person impression," and then they said, "I like killing people because it's so much fun." It's so creepy in its like simplicity.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the thing of the Omen and Damien.
Oh yeah,
or whatnot.
Damien the demon child.
Although Damien actually doesn't really talk, does he? Now that I'm thinking about it in the Omen, am I crazy?
Haven't seen
I've
it.
not seen. We're
I'm
terrible
like-
horror fans.
I've only watched it twice when I was pretty young,
Mm-hmm.
and now all the one line I remember is like, "All for you, Damien. It's all for you." And then the
lady
babysitter jumps
Jumps
off.
off.
Yep.
As a spoiler, it happens early in the movie. Don't sweat it.
Yeah, but like that's for me. That was like one of the early terrifying. I was like, "Oh fuck, that
Yeah.
kid somehow made that woman kill herself. That's crazy."
Another thing about this this cipher solution, he makes a reference. Man is the most dangerous animal of all, which is most people believe, I believe, a reference to the book / movie, The Most Dangerous Game,
where they're hunting, where
they're
rich people are hunting humans
Yeah.
for sport.
Yeah, and this was back in the day before IMDb, before, when you had to do work to find out about stuff.
Also, this guy was probably a film fan.
Yeah, that's a lot of like one of the main suspects who's definitely not the Zodiac Killer that people focus on and who's featured briefly in the movie is this guy who ran like a cinema in San Francisco, basically, where they showed The Most Dangerous Game at some point in the year or so before Zodiac went on his rampage.
Yeah.
So then the idea is like, oh, probably Zodiac is from that area. Probably he was in the audience when they showed that movie. You know, it's like those little things where it's like, he was there.
Right.
And if only you knew.
But at that time, I mean, because The Most Dangerous Game was based off a book or a short story.
Yeah.
So I don't mean to discredit the claim that he must have been a cinephile, but like, because I mean, I remember reading that short story in middle school or high school.
Was it part of curriculums in the 70s?
I mean-
or would it?
Well, also because it was a film from the 30s, so it was an obscure film. It wasn't. I mean, now you can get it on DVD, but at
Right.
the time, the only way you would have seen it would have been at like a revival cinema
Right,
house.
but
But he might have known.
But
the
I'm
book or
saying
story.
the short story, if I'm encountering it in middle school or high school in the 90s or aughts, like I have to assume that the pass around, and also just the fact that the conceit, like the very premise of that short story is so like, as a child, I remember being just gobsmacked by the like sheer concept of like, oh my gosh, the most dangerous game is man. Like why I went William Shatner on that, I'm not sure. Or use the term gobsmacked.
Yeah, I enjoyed both. Honestly, I was a big fan.
So we know we get some really important information from this. We know he's a heterosexual because he talks about this being better than getting one's rocks off with a girl. We realize that he's not necessarily somebody of the Christian faith because he has created this entire mythology in his mind of like what will happen to him when he dies. Who knows if he actually believes it, or maybe it's just something he's using to taunt Puritans with. It's very interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely a theme in his work, I'm going to say. Work sounds like a weird thing to say. The idea of
The
slaves.
Zodiac oeuvre.
Yeah, slaves in paradise is definitely a running theme in his
So
mythology.
would it be fair to say that the people who were conducting this who were looking for him probably assumed that he was somebody who didn't necessarily feel like he had a lot of power in his day-to-day life?
Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption. Yeah.
If we're just diving into some of the psychology behind it, I do feel that tonally this does have a slightly more while it is grandiose in its speech, I feel it shows a degree that could be argued for this to be more of a Gryffindor than a Slytherin.
Oh no, for sure. Because I'm seeing a lot more painful anger coming out of this one instead of just like playful anger or excitable anger. This is like in this cipher, you're getting a lot more about like, first of all, he's telling you why he's doing it.
Yeah, the justification I feel is something that a Gryffindor will be like, we need to be making these sacrifices for this reason. And that to that end, I think
Another element is that this cipher was pretty easy and was broken pretty quickly.
So you think this might have been something he wanted people to solve?
Either he wanted people to solve it, or he was a little ignorant of how easy he thought it was more difficult to solve than it actually was.
And then also, I'm actually going to say this might not be a Gryffindor, guys. This might be a Hufflepuff because he talks about, he compares this thing, the thing that he likes more to anything else. Immediately, he compares it to being out in the forest and hunting game.
Mm-hmm.
And paired with that ignorance of not knowing how simply his puzzle's going to be solved, I might give this one to Hufflepuff.
I don't think that his naivete would...
Or just that he wanting people to solve it easily.
Oh, so like
those are the two options.
You're saying if he's presenting this in a more playful and easy fashion, he more than anything actually wants people to play the game.
He wants the connection with people, and this is the only way he's going to get it.
It's a simple substitution cipher where it's basically just a symbol for letter deal, which
a
the
one to one.
Yeah.
But
and the fact that he obviously was fucking up while he was writing it, because there's a lot of typos that like are probably would not have been made.
So this was a how many character cipher?
408 characters.
408. So
I believe there were multiple symbols for each. I don't remember now. I feel like I don't remember.
I mean,
the way that this couple that solved it was that they were like, okay, what's the most common word that a killer would use? And they're like, oh, it's kill. So they were looking for instances where two symbols appeared next to each other. And then they assumed that, okay, let's think that those are L's, and then before it is an I and a K, and then they sort of worked backwards from that.
It's just like how the Enigma machine or Enigma broke, right? Like during World War II, it would always say like Heil Hitler at the very end, so that was what they singled on. And when they figured those words out, they were able to just like.
Well, here's a hot tip, cipher writers: if you're gonna put a cipher out for a specific thing,
invest in a thesaurus.
Yeah, get those fucking synonyms.
Don't put Heil Hitler at the end of it. Number one, he's not around anymore.
Yeah, don't like.
And number
it'd
two,
be weird
that's
to do
not
a Hitler themed one.
That's not cool. I mean, unless you're doing a Hitler themed one, put it in the middle. Don't put it at the end.
Yeah, just dumb stuff. All right, so we've sorted, I guess, two, kind of. Like, technically just one. But we're now diving into I believe it was October 13th, 1969, the Stein letter. Give us a little bit of backstory for the Stein letter.
So Paul Stein, as we mentioned a little bit before, was just basically a cab driver. And as far as we know, didn't know the Zodiac Killer. It was just a random cabbie that was unlucky and happened to pick him up. And he was shot in the middle of a street in San Francisco, like in a neighborhood at night. And there was a family across the street,
and
where the children witnessed it. And the Zodiac ripped off a piece of Paul Stein's shirt and kept it with him. And also there's a bloody handprint on the side of the door that was left behind that most people believe belonged to the Zodiac, because who else would have, and it was Paul Stein's blood on the side of the cab.
And this one is interesting just looking at the context of it, because somewhere within this letter and several others that have come in between, the Zodiac Killer has taken on that they're their term is the Zodiac Killer.
Yes.
And who ascribed that title?
He ascribed it to himself.
Oh, he did.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course he did.
Yeah.
That's a grandiose statement. Is this the first time that
I think,
Oh no. Okay, I see earlier there's the August 4th letter where he says this is the Zodiac speaking
Yeah.
right at the top.
That's the first one where he
that
says
was
this is-
sent to the San Francisco Examiner. We're not going to be dealing on that one. We're going to jump straight to the Stein letter. We apologize that we're sort of tackling, throughout the chronology of letters, but
Frankie, would you go ahead and do the pleasure, or would you read it for us?
Yes, I will read it. Okay. This is the Zodiac speaking. I am the murderer of the taxi driver over by Washington Street and Maple Street last night. To prove this, here is a blood-stained piece of his shirt. I am the same man who did in the people in the North Bay area. The SF police could have caught me last night if they had searched the park properly, instead of holding road races with their motorcycles, seeing who could make the most noise. The car drivers should have just parked their cars and sat there quietly, waiting for me to come out of cover. School children make nice targets. I think I shall wipe out a school bus some morning, just shoot out the front tire, and then pick off the kiddies as they come bouncing out.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Was this the first time that he specifically threatened children?
Yeah, so this was his big threat, and this is what really caused a panic in San Francisco because people did not want to send their kids to school on a bus.
Don't blame 'em.
Fairly so.
understandably.
Yeah.
What's I'm just thinking of is to receive the letter and upon opening it just have like the blood-stained shirt
Oh yeah.
be like in there.
It's just horrifying, and he used it. He had many pieces. He cut it into many pieces. So he used it many times to sort of verify that it was an authentic letter. He would put a piece of the shirt in there.
Now, based on some of the details that you also told us and the things that are described in the letter, Zodiac sounds annoyed in this one. He sounds like, at this point, he's like, I am making it so easy on you guys and you're still fucking this up.
Well,
what are you doing?
And making it a point to sort of call out that those who have civic duties like the San Francisco police are too busy holding road races with their motorcycles.
He's mocking them and saying like, you guys aren't doing your fucking job. And now people like knowing that I'm out there, you're still not doing your job. People are getting killed because of you. This puts the blame it shifts it onto the police force.
It's almost like something that like a grumpy old man who just doesn't like the cops would say.
yeah.
Sort
Yeah.
of like, they're down their motorcycles running road races in the street.
It's got a very curmudgeon-y tone
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah, especially with like, this is the Zodiac speaking. Let's get down to business, boys.
Right. I'm real split on where this one falls. Do you have a take on this, Katie?
Well, okay, so I'm going to say the fact that there's very little patience for suffering fools and saying, okay, I'm laying this all out. And also, here are the people who are not doing their jobs. It's very much by the book, and it feels Ravenclaw-ish for me. This is the first one to me that like is like, oh yeah, there's a lot less typos. It feels, or not typos, but misspellings. This feels very much like a Ravenclaw to me.
It's certainly more direct.
This is a smart man who's just like frustrated with what's going on.
There is the part of me that, I mean, trying to not lean too hard in it, but like there's a sense of pride that this person's taking of like, I could have been caught, but like you're all too stupid.
Yeah, and that's definitely the kind of pride that a Ravenclaw would have.
Oh, I saw it more as a gloaty sort of Slytherin move, but I can see the argument there.
Yeah, like the most Slytherin thing to me is the fact that like is like showing his hand. I'll kill children if that's what it takes for you fucks to get your
right.
shit together.
It's a weird leverage play almost.
But still, since he never murdered any children, did he?
No, as far as we know, it's certainly possible because later on he claimed 37 victims. He started signing his letters with the Zodiac symbol, and then it would say like Z, or it would say Zodiac symbol 11 SFPD 0. Zodiac 20 SFPD 0, and then the final number was 37 victims he claims, which is possible, but I think most people assume that he didn't have that many victims because somebody like him, I think, wouldn't have been able to be quiet about it, you know?
Oh, sure. Since like every
Right.
time he has even a single victim, this big letter comes out.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
think like even in his own mind, he had like this person who was like creating such a stir still had
Yeah.
those what's it called when you think you're a much more important than you are, delusions of grandeur.
Yeah. Even we'll see later, even what's been described as his very first victim, he wrote stuff and sent letters, which were discovered later. So
Whoa.
Now,
can we do the November 8th? The November 8th one, because I think it's short and I think it'll be a really good one
November
for the purpose of sorting.
the dripping pen
Yes, the
card.
dripping pen card.
Yes. Oh, here it is.
Yeah.
This, just as I clicked on it to look at it, it's just a postcard, it appears.
Yes. So in the middle and later stages of Zodiac's epistolary endeavors, he started writing on greeting cards. So this is the first greeting card that he sent, and he sent it along with his 340 character cipher, which, like we said, has still never been solved. So, folks, get on it. So I'll read this one if we're ready.
Yes.
This is the Zodiac speaking. I thought you would need a good laugh before you hear the bad news. You won't get the news for a while yet. P.S. Could you print this new cipher on your front page? I get awfully lonely when I am ignored. So lonely I could do my thing. And then it says like December, July, August, September, October equals 7.
It's also worth noting on this thing is like written over boldly several times over, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
Yeah, and then
exclamation marks, and thing is underlined 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times at least by this scan.
And the card that he sent it on has, it says, sorry I haven't written, but I just washed my pen. And it has like a picture of a pen, like a fountain pen that's dripping wet, I guess is why it's called the dripping pen card.
It's a very odd selection if we're just reading into the pen, because it appears that it almost has like a submarine like make to it.
Yeah.
Of like it's plate metal or something like that.
It's just such a weird, and it's odd to say in the context of a serial killer, but like a sense of humor. Like you just picture him he must have been walking in a store or something and seen that card, you know what I mean? And been like, oh, this is perfect. Like just a little pop up of humor, which makes it so much more disturbing because you can just tell how much fun he's having.
No,
with
yeah,
it.
there's like a certain like wry like sense of humor. Like I get awful lonely when I'm ignored.
Well, and the simple tone of P.S. Could you print this new cipher? like it's almost conversational and just matter of fact. Like, hey, if it's not too much trouble, I'd love for you to print this cipher. Otherwise, I'm gonna have to kill people. Like it's very folksy.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it very much evokes like we have an established rapport now, you and I, the press.
Yeah, and even
no formalities
and
needed.
even starting with, I thought you could use a good laugh before you hear the bad news.
Yeah.
Just jumping ahead, what is the bad news?
Yeah. There is no bad news.
Oh,
Nothing happened?
Yeah, as far as we know, he did not kill, and there are no confirmed victims after Paul Stein, the cab driver. So the bad news never came.
As far as
we know.
I mean, obviously there were confirmed later murders at that point.
No.
Oh, really?
So Stein's the last murder that like
the
they
last
can
confirmed murder that we can tie to Zodiac.
absolutely link it. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. Okay, so fair. I mean,
But he would send letters saying like, "Oh, I'm still killing people." By the way,
yes, he would send updates on the number of people, and he will say and taunt the police.
but he never gives like specifics.
Yeah.
so that-
After this, there's no other murders that we can definitively tie to the Zodiac.
that's wild.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, a 2-year run of murders and even killing 7 people within that period of time. Or hold on. Well, the first. So I'm sorry. I'm conferring with the April 30th, 1967 letters.
Well, that we'll talk about later because that's. Or we could do that one next if you want to.
Or sorry, there was even the Riverside Desk, which I'm just looking at this chronology on a website over here.
Yeah. So basically, we could do
zodiackiller.com.
that. Do you want to do that one next? So basically,
Going to the Riverside Desk?
Yeah, let's do the Riverside Desk. So during the investigation of the, or
we still need to sort this guy. We still need to sort this
God!
card.
Yeah,
I'm so
no.
sorry. We haven't sorted
The whole thing, my man.
I mean, I'm throwing
That's the
out
point.
just Hufflepuff, just in
Yeah.
the playful nature.
No, I would agree.
We feeling good on this?
Yeah,
I feel
Hufflepuff.
good. I feel good with that.
Great, let's dive onto this desk because this
Okay.
shit's getting crazy. Let's
Now,
go
first
further
of all,
down
I
the
want
rabbit
to
hole.
say right now, I mean, it's bad enough that it happened anywhere, but I'm from Riverside, from the area that the Riverside Desk one happens. Like, so this one always creeps me out the most.
Yeah. So while they were investigating Zodiac, and part of the problem with the investigation was that there were 3 different agencies investigating because the murders occurred in different places. So you had the San Francisco PD, you had the Vallejo PD, and also the what's the name of the county PD up there?
Oh, I don't know.
Who knows? There were 3 different police departments all investigating, and they shared information, but you know how cops can be. They kind of kept.
Yeah, they want their jurisdiction.
They want their own stuff, but they got a tip. They got a tip about this desk down in Riverside that has handwriting that looks exactly like the Zodiac's.
And so this is not a carved in to the desk situation. This is
written in pen on the desk. And there was the victim was named Sherry Jo Bates, and she was killed late at night in the parking lot, I believe, of the community college. And they found this letter, and the handwriting expert confirmed that it was Zodiac's handwriting.
Okay, so there's a letter and a desk.
So there's the desk. Did I say letter?
Yeah, sorry.
And then they also went back and they found letters that were sent to the local newspapers in 1965 that basically said Bates had to die. And he sent it to the newspaper. He sent it to her father, and I think he sent it one other place. And so, and later on, after this was published, Zodiac wrote in a letter and confirmed and says, "I see you found my Riverside activity." So,
Holy shit.
now you could say he's just bullshitting and maybe he didn't do this crime, which some people think. I believe it's him. The handwriting looks exactly like him.
So let's dive into this poem on the desk.
So this is a poem that was found written on a desk at this community college.
What was the date on that one?
Well, the desk was, I guess, identified in 1966.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no...
So we don't know the exact... I mean, so Bates died in 1965, you said?
Yes, I'm fairly certain, yeah.
So somewhere in between that period of time.
This was found, I think, in 69 or 70.
Okay.
Yeah. So here's the poem. Sick of living, unwilling to die, cut, clean. If red, clean. Blood spurting, dripping, spilling all over her new dress. Oh well, it was red anyway. Life draining into an uncertain death. She won't die. This time, someone will find her. Just wait till next time. And it's signed R.H.
Are any of the suspects, do they have those initials?
Well, that's a lot of people have been looking and seeing this, trying to find RH people, but nobody's ever really found anybody.
What's also interesting about this is it's got a slight E.E. Cummings formatting thing going on. As far as, for those familiar with E.E. Cummings or unfamiliar, E.E. Cummings had a tendency structurally to sort of scatter the words across the page, perhaps in a staircase fashion or waterfall,
often
or
just
to
putting
create a visual image with the words,
right,
which is being done here with the blood spurting, comma, dripping, comma, spilling, semicolon. Like you can kind of see
each is
it.
getting its own line and like staircasing to the right,
and it kind of looks like something flowing.
and it's, I mean, this is me just as far as like a format nerd goes. The fact spilling and all over her new like end at roughly the same right side line, which is pretty well done. It's like odd to be complimenting him on his formatting.
Yeah.
But it's definitely fitting. It almost makes you think it had been written on paper first, and then because there's not a lot of there's no cross out, there's no anything like that,
Right?
And then maybe copied onto the desk. It's
a very very interesting the way. I mean,
a lot of people also who claim this isn't a Zodiac letter will say that this seems like to be about a suicide. If you can read it that way, you can read it as here's a killer who is not yet going to kill his victim, or somebody who's depressed and just not ready to do it yet.
I mean, there's definitely a sense of desperation at the tail end of it, of like, this time someone find her, just wait till next time. Like there's a little bit of desperation I feel in that almost. Is there anything in any of the Zodiac's later correspondence that suggests like a more tortured nature? Like, because
you'd have to assume that this person would be.
Well, right, but some serial killers will be like, I don't want to do this sort of thing.
Well, here's, and this is my favorite. This is my like pet way that I think we can solve the Zodiac case. So there's this kooky lawyer named Robert Tarbox who lives in Nevada now. He's pretty old, but I think he's still around. And the main suspect was Arthur Lee Allen. He's the guy who's in the Zodiac movie, who's been ruled out as the Zodiac, but for a while he's the focus of the Zodiac book. And so when in the 90s, when he was kind of going through some stuff and they were searching his places, this lawyer Tarbox put out an ad in I think in the Chronicle or a local paper up in San Francisco saying basically that he was a maritime lawyer in San Francisco in like I think 73 or 74, and that a man came into his office right about when it was closing and sat down and confessed to being the Zodiac Killer. And said, I don't want to kill anymore. I just want to know what my legal options were. And he said they talked for like an hour, and that he knows the man's name, and that he felt like the guy was not going to kill anymore, and so he wanted to maintain patient confidentiality and not reveal his name. But he wanted the family of Arthur Lee Allen to know that definitely it wasn't him. So a lot of people think, well, maybe some guy was playing a joke on this lawyer Tarbox, or maybe.
But you believe Tarbox?
I believe it because I think there's a lot of speculation that Zodiac was military. There were wing walker boot prints, which is like a military boot that you wouldn't have been able to find. There's a lot of like nautical references to map making
and to marksmanship, because he talks about hunting.
Yeah, and if he was a merchant marine, which is what Tarbox said he was, then that would explain why he kind of disappeared for times. Like, he could kill somebody and then go work on a boat for a few months and that would be a good way to lay low. So to me, it just all fits, and it makes sense to me.
And the fantasy of having slaves when you were somebody who was like definitely like pinned down into a position of servitude to such a large organization, to feel so small and insignificant within, like feeling like a cog. That definitely tracks.
Yeah. So, what was I getting to? So when you talk about, so if that's true, then a possible solution to why we never heard anything from him again was that he just had this moment where he's like, okay, I'm done. And just never did it again, and
that's wild.
Lived out the rest of his life. Never confessed.
I mean, this desk is just so perplexing to me on so many levels, because I mean, this goes back to some of our earlier points of like this sort of more refined poetry almost seems to suggest that he does have some degree of education, as opposed to like writing a limerick, which I think is customarily when someone's like poetry and you're like, okay, it's an ABAB rhyme scheme or something like that. And this shows some degree of sophistication.
And that would have been hip, again, there was a different time when you really had to seek stuff out. So, you wouldn't be exposed to that unless you were, that was happening at the time.
Right.
Yeah. Granted, I mean, I wouldn't put it past Zodiac to write a limerick purely based on like, this is my way of of just kind of goading the person into being like, haha.
Yeah, and if we assume that this desk poem is authentic, it's part of his writings. There's this one, he didn't expect people to find it necessarily.
Yeah.
He wrote this with the hopes that somebody would see it, but it wasn't necessarily something that he wanted out in the spotlight. There's a certain vulnerability to that, of just like having this sort of emotional expression, putting it down on something permanent like that, and it's just a desk, and just hoping somebody looks down, reads it, and has some sort of like connection to it. And for that, I'd put this into Gryffindor.
Really?
Because I feel like Gryffindors tend to be the ones who have an emotional vulnerability. Hufflepuffs have vulnerability too, but this one feels more like vulnerable in a way that desperately wants to be seen and doesn't know how.
You saw the emotionality sort of pouring out, as opposed to if were this not on a desk and were this just like a letter perhaps in a library book, almost like it, where it was like not really meant to be found, it would probably lean it more to the Hufflepuff side, you think?
Maybe. I don't know. This like reeks of like a loneliness in despite being very terrible and gruesome. This speaks to more of like a side that the killer probably didn't necessarily want to be seen.
I mean, it definitely, with the title being Sick of Living, Unwilling to Die, if that's the title, I mean, like, as simply a starting statement, there's a degree of both pain and frustration.
Yeah, although you have to be careful with that, because that while we would assume that speaks to the author's feelings, that could also be how he sees his victims.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Which, I mean, the agitation still remains in either scenario. I can give you Gryffindor. I do feel more Hufflepuff personally. Franky,
it might be Hufflepuff in the term, like, I'd almost feel like if we're saying like that this is the way he describes his victims, it's almost like I'm doing her a kindness.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. What's Gryffindor about? What are they all about? What's their deal?
Bravery, courage, but also a bit of...
I'm going to just lean over and give you this sort of cheat sheet of terms.
There can be some pride, like almost like a...
Yeah.
Yeah, like, if you've seen the Harry Potter films, Harry Potter is like...
Yeah.
Like, he is the Gryffindor guy.
Right.
Like working towards something based on maybe not a great past.
Yeah. Oh, so that element of like past sadness, past trauma.
In his case, anyway, I don't want to read too far into Gryffindors, but I'm just saying, like, they usually have an entitlement because they're trying to work towards something better, whereas Slytherins Slytherins have an entitlement just based on their status.
Right.
Yeah, and like just comparing those two again, like Slytherins tend to have a slight more cold approach to like why they are deserving of it, whereas Gryffindors have like an emotionality towards it. So
I'll go with that. I buy the emotion. I see a lot of emotion here.
All right. So we're giving this desk piece a Gryffindor. Let's jump on to, shall we go Red Phantom Letter or Halloween card next?
Let's see.
We're skipping around a little bit in our chronology now, so
let's
everything's up for grabs.
Just tell me what the date is, because that's how this
this thing has the date on it.
The Red Phantom is July 8th of 1974.
Yeah, and this is one of the and not confirmed Zodiac, but suspected to be Zodiac letters, based on handwriting, and it was sent to the Chronicle. So let me read it. Editor. Put Marco back in the hellhole from whence it came. He has a serious psychological disorder, always needs to feel superior. I suggest you refer him to a shrink. Meanwhile, cancel the Count Marco column. Since the Count can write anonymously, so can I. The Red Phantom, red with rage.
Whoa, what's going on here? There's a lot of stuff. Like, what are some of these details?
Yeah.
So I think Count Marco was a column in the San Francisco Chronicle, and I guess this is just a letter, assumed to be from the Zodiac. Just an angry letter. He doesn't like
Just
Marco's
a general
column.
letter to the editor.
Just a letter to the
Why does he call
editor.
himself the Red Phantom?
No, that's a question we don't know.
And how do we
And
how
he
do we know
doesn't-
that it's from him?
and
Just
he
the
doesn't
handwriting?
sign it.
Handwriting analysis on the envelope and on the word editor, because the handwriting in this letter is a little more florid.
Yeah, I was noticing the M's and C's and R's all have like a lot more of a grandiose flourish, and like they ride a lot lower on the line. It's
Yeah, and actually there's a movie called The Red Phantom, which played at a cinema in San Francisco, and a few months later, this letter appeared at the Chronicle. So that's part of the building evidence that Zodiac was sort of a cinephile.
mm-hmm.
Which you hate, Michael, because you're like, I love movies. How could I? I
mean, we definitely exist in a time where people, pop culture and remix
And
things.
you have to remember, this man was from the first generation that grew up with film.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
this was like deep.
I'm not.
Either
Yeah.
way, this was like entrenched in everybody's like life.
Well, The Red Phantom was also a very obscure. It was a 1907 silent film, so it was
so
not.
this dude was like super into
Yeah,
film.
yeah. So this dude, and he also references the Mikado in a different letter, which is
the
what's
Gilbert and Sullivan
Gilbert
musical.
And Sullivan musical. So he has a lot of pop culture is probably the wrong word, but obscure-ish cultural references.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this like leads me more and more to believe this is somebody who had like formal education, like higher
Yeah.
education.
And this is after, and keep in mind, like there's a 3-year period from 71 to 74 where the Zodiac does not write at all. There are no killings, no bragging. And this is how he kind of like makes an appearance.
That's very strange. And this was published.
I don't believe this letter was published.
Okay, but it was sent to the San Francisco
Yes.
Chronicle.
Yeah.
This one is interesting because it's outside of showing a sort of concern for Count Marco or Marco. There's no true substance there's a minor jab about writing anonymously.
Yeah.
Other than that, this is again, like going back to the curmudgeony from the Stein letter a little bit, except at that time there was general like murder had just happened.
Yeah, and this is the fourth letter that he had sent in 1974, and all of them have references to movies. The first one has a reference to The Exorcist. The third one, he talks about the film Badlands.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely a film freak.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting that he's so angry at this Count Marco, saying like, he has a psychological disorder. And it makes me wonder if like he hated seeing somebody else maybe with the same sort of bravado that he had, getting attention, having a newspaper byline, and maybe feeling like some of his celebrity was starting to fade away.
Mm-hmm.
So there's maybe I get a tinge of jealousy from this letter.
Yeah, Count Marco, I guess, was a women's advice columnist.
That's
In the
hilarious.
San Francisco Chronicle.
Of course, like a women's
it's
advice
really-
column in the
yeah.
70s had a male author.
Well, it's also just like such a bizarre thing to be singling out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why of all things is that the thing that one is bothering him and bothering him enough to cause him to write in.
Especially knowing that his handwriting is some of the most famous handwriting in all of America.
Well, but he does, you can see in this letter, like the capital C and M, he does seem to be, like the editor is typical Zodiac, the way he writes it, like exactly how it always looks. But then in some of the capital letters, there's sort of like some very fancy, like the M kind of swoops down and the C, like it seems like.
You think he's trying to mask it?
Maybe he's trying to mask it, but the envelope and then that editor is just it's so spot on.
Mm. I would go so far to say, just based on like the envy side, that this goes Slytherin.
Yeah, and it's definitely petty.
Yeah,
which Slytherins, you must admit, you can sometimes be.
Yeah, I'd say. And Ravenclaws are like probably the ones that would fall into, but based on the more frustration of like this column sort of thing, I think we can safely eschew this to Slytherin.
Yeah.
What are we diving over to this Halloween card?
Yeah, so
this is sending us back in time, guys, so I apologize again for the
what date was
chronology
this one on?
jump. This is October 27th, 1970. This was sent to Paul Avery, who was a reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle. And just to describe a little bit of what this, because it's a postcard.
It's so weird.
Yeah,
it says
so weird.
It says, "From your secret pal," and it's a photo, or not photo, of like it's a cartoon with a skeleton dancing and giving like the OK sign, and on the OK on the hand is the number 14 just written, and then like a pumpkin blocking the crotch of this skeleton as it's like clicking its heels, giving the OK. And then it says, "I feel it in my bones, your ache to know my name, and so I'll clue you in." And that's like what I assume is actually on the postcard. And then I
think it's like a greeting card.
Yeah, it's like a greeting card.
Yeah.
And
then you open it.
Yeah, you open it and it says
boo.
Boo.
Well, the card says,
but then why spoil? I guess the word is some.
Yeah.
Or game.
Why spoil the game?
Why spoil the game? Because the reason I'm struggling is that skeleton is like blocking the actual word.
Whoever at Hallmark designed this card didn't do it.
Yeah, it's just like it's like alluding to the fact that like everything he does is through puzzles. It's everything's blocked off.
Well, and so the skeleton's blocking both those words, the words "Happy Halloween," which are under the skeleton's feet, as it were, and it's also very odd because the skeleton's like doing some sort of like leapy V-armed pose, and its legs sort of flung out from under it.
I think this is like, have you ever seen those older cars? I think this is like, I think his legs move. Like, I think there's little joints on them, and you can like move the skeleton around as part of the card.
And also worth noting, there's like a tree on the left side of the frame with a bunch of eyeballs that are all looking to the right and have like eyelashes, and they might be stickers, it almost appears.
Yeah.
And then the word 14 is written with it 4-teen above the skeleton head, and I can't read what is around the tree.
There's like a
knot.
It says, "Peekaboo, you are doomed."
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and then on the left, there's sort of like a cross pattern where down it says paradise, spelled the way Zodiac spell it, Paradice, and then going horizontally it says slaves, and then by fire, by gun, by knife, by rope, which was sort of a theme that he had.
And the N in by knife is backwards. And then there's also under the jumping skeleton covering up Happy Halloween, there's a set of symbols, one of which being a Z and the zodiac sign, but then there's also this like, I guess like it kind of looks a little bit like a bat, like a V if it were a bat with some eyes.
Yeah.
And like,
Yeah, do we know what that symbol is?
No.
it's very
This is so weird.
yeah. So
This is the one that like even ones where he's like literally like bullet listing everything that he did in those first 3 letters. This one's so much creepier.
well, and this one is, I mean, at this point he's claiming 14 victims, right?
Yes, so he's claiming 14.
And at that time, how many did they have?
By this time, he would have been
Like, how many they,
27,
like,
70.
accounted
So
for,
this
yeah.
would have been already, this would have been after he was basically finished, as far as we know.
Mm-hmm.
And who is Paul Avery?
Paul Avery was a reporter at the San Francisco Chronicle. He's portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. in the David Fincher
So he's
film.
one of the people investigating the most deeply onto this.
Yeah, he is definitely like the high profile writer on the case, and somebody who was definitely into it and investigating it.
And this was sent to him directly,
To
or
the Chronicle, to the San Francisco
Chronicle?
Chronicle, to his attention.
This one's so
There's like the playfulness of it is what's so creepy,
right.
and like how much work it took. Because is this handmade, or was this like a store bought card?
This is a store bought. This is a store bought card, which then
With some modifications.
he adorned with other. Yeah.
So he like was walking through a store, saw this one. Oh, this is perfect. I should send him a card.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, this is another case of him just probably stumbling upon, because it says from your secret pal.
It should be noted, reading here, that while he wrote about these things, he's never been known to have used rope or fire.
Yeah, there's speculation. There's a woman who's believed to be a Zodiac escapee who was driving down a road, and a man told her she had a flat tire and said he would fix it. And then so she pulled over and he worked on her tire, and then she drove away and the tire was completely shot out and she ran off the road. And then this man offered her a ride. She had her baby with her, and she got in the car with him and he drove her around. And then did she escape? I think just nothing happened. Like, I think she just.
So wait, the same person who
Told
fixed her, who told her she had a flat tire.
Yeah,
then
someone's like,
picked her
"Oh,
up.
dang, I must have missed. Yeah, I must have messed up." And he picks her up in his car.
It's a long con game.
Yeah.
And then to like not maybe. So I mean, in that argument, this is me just purely speculating. You said that she had a baby with her.
Yeah, she had her baby with her, and I think the speculation is sort of that, like, once he saw the baby was there,
Right,
He
the
wasn't
baby
into
neutralized.
it. He wasn't into it anymore. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy, and also like, thank God that the Zodiac Killer had some degree of a conscience.
They always have some sort of logic that you shouldn't try to figure out. It's bonkers.
Right.
Yeah, they drove around in his car for 90 minutes, basically.
That's so weird.
To go back to the card, though, to say,
Right.
Peekaboo, you are doomed. It feels very much like a purse. Like, this
It's
is
a veiled
to
threat.
Paul.
Yeah.
This is to Paul Avery, not necessarily the community at large anymore.
Yeah, this is basically telling him that you might be the next victim.
Well, it could be you are the next victim, but it could be speaking in a more just general sense of like, if you're trying to find me, your efforts are doomed.
Yeah.
That's true.
I'm
Or
trying to
could
view it as
this
a
could
more.
be now. This is like probably me getting too tinfoil hatty, but maybe this was sent directly to Avery because he had some sort of lead
Mhm.
that was substantial enough, and the killer somehow knew about it and wanted to get Paul Avery to back off a little bit, because didn't that guy have a family and stuff?
I don't believe Paul Avery did have
Oh,
a
okay.
family. I think he was sort of a lone wolf, as it may. At
Either
least
way,
at
though,
least at that time.
To have a known serial killer send a card directly to me, if I've investigated, that would at least give me pause. Like, is this worth me?
Yeah.
Is this worth me even going through anymore?
Oh yeah, for sure.
It's very aggressive in my mind.
But also like playful in that like my mom sent me an article that she cut out of the New York Post that was like parrot squawks on a fair, I believe. Yeah. And she sent it to me and she's like, thought you would like this. Like there's definitely that like that mom humor type thing.
Right. I would
rule out Ravenclaws at this point.
Yeah. I'm seeing this as either a Slytherin or a Hufflepuff based on, I mean, it goes back and forth in like not knowing fully what the intent is behind it, which is the mystifying, tricky thing.
Yeah. And for that reason, and the fact that it's like arts and crafts involved, I would probably give it to Hufflepuff.
I mean, I'm satisfied with that.
If someone's going to give you a homemade card and you're like, I don't necessarily know what this is even for, that's a Hufflepuff move.
Yeah.
It's got that spooky, scary skeleton just doing its thing.
Yeah, dancing around a little bit.
But yeah, I feel this is probably a comfortable spot to conclude as far as the amount of letters, unless there's another letter that you're like.
I think that's great. I hope I'm getting, I feel bad. I hope I'm getting all my facts right. I feel like I'm going to get roasted.
This is loosey-goosey, yeah.
It's loosey-goosey, but I would still love to thank you for joining us, Franky. And we can find more of you where?
You should check out my show, Dark Matters, or This is Dark Matters, which you can find under This is Dark Matters on iTunes, or the website is darkmattershow.com.
He and another guest that we'll be having on the show, Michael Bilo, do a live show at the Pack Theater every month.
Yeah, and it's very cool in the fact that not only are you guys like bringing on specialists on whatever subject that you're discussing, but they also have a Skype line, which Katie tends to be manning.
Yeah, you can call in if you know what night we're doing it, because obviously it's not like live as the podcast is recording, but if you know the subject, you can call in, just fucking roast Franky and just troll him if you want to. Do bits,
you definitely had
do characters.
A caller about the mysterious disappearance at Chick-fil-A. That
yes, that was a favorite. Yeah, so that phone and literally, if you're listening to this, just call this number and leave a message, and we can play it at our show. It's
absolutely.
It's 818-650-DARK dark or 3275 818-650-3275, and just freaking call it and say whatever you want about anything.
Yeah, because there's like the reason why I got so excited to join this show was there's like an absence from Art Bell's show. Like out there right now. And like there are other people, obviously people just talk about stuff online, but the fact that there's like a show that you can call into and talk about whatever crazy shit comes to your mind is so neat. Yeah. You just don't see that anymore.
So definitely check out This is Dark Matters. We're going to have you on for another topic.
Oh, baby.
Yeah.
It'll probably be less gruesome, but we'll find out.
Yeah. And certainly if you are a fan of our show or This is Dark Matters, we will always encourage you to leave us a review on iTunes because that sort of thing helps us in the iTunes chart. Also, if you want to be following more from myself, Katie, or Franky. Franky, are you on Twitter?
No.
Oh, okay.
But then Dark Matters does have a Twitter account.
Okay.
So if you search Dark Matters, you'll find their Twitter account.
I always say friend me on Facebook when I go on things,
so
which is super
grandma.
awkward, but just search for my name and friend me on Facebook.
And that's how you can get all your Franky Guttman updates.
Then you can know everything about me.
But if you want to yell at me for any inaccuracies in the Zodiac Killer subject information that we talked about today, you can find me at that Katie Reed.
You can find me at Belated Media. And thank you so much for joining us on this Zodiac Killer inspired episode of The Sorting Hat.
Bye.
There it is.